On behalf of the people of New Zealand and the Parliament of New Zealand, I welcome you to this sacred space as we join in remembrance of the terrible events of 100 years ago today. Here at Passchendaele, our country experienced its darkest day of the First World War. The failed attack of the New Zealand Division on Bellevue Spur on 12th of October 1917 remains the greatest loss of life in a single day in New Zealand's modern history. Some 960 men were killed as a result of that battle. These terrible losses occurred only 8 days after the successful New Zealand attack at Scruffendaville, in which 500 New Zealanders also died. New Zealand soldiers who fought here described devastating scenes amidst, quote, a porridge of mud and, quote, a place that stamps itself in one's mind and memory like a red hot iron. Private William Kingston Wilson wrote, "It is hard to imagine that 4 years ago, peaceful people tilled the same soil and that it was one of the most prosperous districts in Europe. Now, well, it's simply an awful nightmare." The New Zealanders came from the opposite side of the globe. As inscriptions on New Zealand memorials across the Western Front read, they came from the uttermost ends of the earth. These soldiers were from places that could not be more distant from where we stand now, from Invercargill and Petone, from Greymouth and Rotorua, from Christchurch and from Whanganui. To sound the names of these familiar towns and cities recalls the indelible scar this battle would leave on our young country. It reminds us that this battle of such massive scale, of miles of trenches, of hundreds of thousands of men, of millions of shells, caused as much more local, quiet devastation back home. The shock in which the news of the losses was received in these communities can scarcely be imagined. Among this loss, New Zealanders vowed there should never be another Passchendaele, a name that came to epitomise the horror of the Great War, a name ingrained in our national psyche. But this horror was not New Zealand's alone. The suffering in these fields and the tragic legacy of the First World War was shared by all nations who fought in it and by those whose soil it was fought on. Today, the shared history ties us to those with whom we were allied and also to our former foes. Now we are friends seeking peace in the world. It is by securing a future free from intolerance and conflict that we honour the memory of those that fought and died here so long ago. In early 1919, before any of the battles of the First World War were given their official titles, the names of Passchendaele and 11 other battles were fixed to the walls of the debating chamber of the New Zealand Parliament. The names of other battles and campaigns have been added to over the years. The most recent, Afghanistan, was installed in 2013. These plaques serve as reminders, perpetual reminders to me and to my fellow members of Parliament of the grave responsibility we bear when we send the young men and women of our Defence Force into conflict. In honouring those who lost their lives here, I believe we have an obligation to recommit ourselves to the principles of peace. We must show that even out of our darkest days, we are able to dedicate ourselves to reconciliation and friendship. we must show that light can follow darkness.
Should we Memories rest in Tyne's bows of red. Yet in Flanders poppies sigh, while a young man lies still nearby, who gave their lives that we may be forever safe, forever free, in the land of the Bahudakawa tree, who gave their lives that we may be forever safe, forever free, in the land of the Bahudakawa tree.
Evacuating the thousands of casualties from Bellevue after the failed attack of the 12th of October 1917 was a nightmare for the wounded and the stretcher bearers alike. It was only possible at all because of an unofficial truce granted by the Germans, who also needed to evacuate their wounded. Many years later, Linus Ryan, a 20-year-old railway cadet from Christchurch, recalled being sent out as part of one of the 4-man teams used to bring in the wounded. Not a dozen steps had we taken before the whole squad were bogged to our thighs in clinging slime. We rested the stretcher on the mud, whilst the 2 leaders extricated themselves, then shoved the stretcher a few yards and waited while the bearers in the rear crawled out of the slime. It took us over an hour to bring that man a distance of 300 yards. Every step you would sink to the knees at least, and then without warning, you struck a bad patch. You would feel yourself sink and wonder if you were ever going to stop. Then the struggle would begin, and pushing and sliding the stretcher along the surface, we would fight to regain the comparative solidity of knee-deep mud. It was grueling, heart-breaking work.
Representatives on behalf of the people of New Zealand, together with Mr. Paul Brain, Commissioner General for the commemoration of the First World War on behalf of the Belgian Federal Government, and Mrs. Cindy Verrouge on behalf of the Government of Flanders. Please stand for the commemoration.
E kore rātou e kaumātua tia. Pēnei i a tātou kua mahue nei. E kore hoki rātou e ngoi kore. Aha koa pēhia i ngā āhuatanga o te wā. I te heke ngātu o te rā, tainoa ki te aranga mai i te ata. Ka maumahara tonu tātou ki a rātou. Ka maumahara tonu tātou ki a rātou.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember.